And now a report from Scott Hull titled, "What I Did on My Summer Vacation." I'll confess that every ingathering has a bit of that feel. School report time. Time to stand up in front of the class, tell everyone about all the places I went, all the trophies I won, all the adventures I had, and all the proud scars I collected on my misadventures. My clergy colleagues across the non-UU world remind me that a great many churches do summer a great bit differently from us. In fact, most of them just keep on keeping on. They call it ordinary time. Just a calm and tidy progression of weeks leading up to Advent and then to Christmas. No adventures and nothing unexpected. How optimistic. Unitarian Universalist churches went a different way, and we did it a long time ago. And I want to say that it's largely because our tradition grew up here in America, grew up at a time when summer break meant just that, at least for the wealthy upper crust. They just packed up and left town for several months every summer. Sounds pretty nice, actually. So here's my theory of why that happened. Sewers. Sewers weren't put into most American cities until the mid-1800s, and the first sewage treatment plants weren't operational for another 50 years past that. So it doesn't take much imagination to see why folks might want to leave town and miss the summer heat. Anyone here taken the architecture boat tour around the Chicago River? A couple of you. It's scenic now, but I'm not sure it's possible to imagine what that would have looked like 150 years ago. Whoa! But I digress. I was talking about how Unitarian Universalists do summer. This summer, our tradition as a whole did something rather monumental. At our all-online General Assembly, delegates from across our denomination voted overwhelmingly to make fundamental changes to our governing association's bylaws. To wit, we have adopted a new set of identity statements framing up at least some of the core values that we collectively hold dear. For those of you keeping track, those shared values are justice, equity, transformation, pluralism, interdependence, and generosity. Collectively, they're known by an acronym made up of their first letters. JETPIG. Can we get some images up there? This reminds me of what one of the many things I did this summer, which was play with ChatGPT. It turns out our new AI overlords love the image that this invokes. Some of their suggestions for helpful visual aids were just adorable. Can we get a couple more of those? Yeah, good stuff. Right? Some were adorable. Some were less adorable. Yeah. Yeah, and now you're never going to unsee that. Lord, I apologize. So while I cheerfully admit to having the sense of humor of a 12-year-old, I want to suggest that these changes are quite profound. The new statements put love at the center of our faith, where it belongs. The next decade or more will be an invitation to all of us to reimagine and grow into something new inside of our tradition. My colleague, the Reverend David Miller, calls this a magnificent change. He says, quote, "We are currently living in times baiting us not to love. The social and political atmosphere in which we travel insidiously tempts us to find fault, place blame, point fingers, and increase that which can tear us apart. And yet, we practice a faith where we are called to answer the question, what is the most loving thing I can do right now? It's an inspiring moment for us all. Anyway, going forward, you're likely to see a lot more from me, from our religious education team, and the wider UUA about these new values, what they mean for our faith tradition, what they might mean, and how they could shape our approach to a wider world. Thank you for the images. Speaking of inspiration, this summer I got to visit the famous Chautauqua Institute on the shores of Lake Chautauqua in western New York. If you have never been or read that classic novel, Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance, the historical importance of that place may well be lost on you. To make a long story very short, in the 19th century, most American adults had something less than an 8th grade education. The idea of lifelong learning, at a time when lifelong meant approximately 40 years, give or take, that came from Chautauqua. And you can thank them for high school, the fact that we have high school, and the fact that we have near universal literacy here in the United States today. Now, this summer, I was invited to preach to the UU congregation that meets in Chautauqua in their glorious open-air Hall of Philosophy, which is very much like a pavilion you'd find in ancient Athens. No walls, just a great big roof held up by Doric columns. It was an altogether humbling experience. And in my life, it was second only to preaching here at UUSG. On that breezy summer morning, I reminded that large and lively group that democracy was a core ideal to Unitarian Universalists and has been so since our founding. I urged them to, quote, do something, specifically 100 hours each between that day and election day, and to invest those hours into an election that, to all reports, still falls within the margin of effort. The margin of effort. Now, that same day, by happenstance, President Joe Biden announced that he would not seek the nomination. Now, I love Joe, and I am just delighted by what he has accomplished with us over the last 4 years. But that afternoon, after he announced, the entire Chautauqua Institute, in fact, the entire country, felt as if it exhaled. And then everyone started talking all at once. And we haven't really stopped yet. It's electric, this feeling. I want to say that I've been buoyed by that feeling ever since. Anyone else? Maybe a couple of you? Now, the Johnson Amendment says that I'm prohibited from endorsing a candidate from this pulpit, just as we as a church are prohibited from endorsing candidates, so I'm not going to do that. Instead, what I will tell you is that in these last few weeks leading up into November, UUSG will join hundreds of UU churches and thousands of other churches across this great country to, in the words of former First Lady Michelle Obama, do something. We're going to do something. So stay tuned for that. We're looking forward to hearing more from our social justice team on this in a couple weeks. In addition to that, my friend and colleague, the Reverend Scott Asang, will be here in a couple weeks to talk with us about how local action here in Chicagoland continues on even after the election, and how your participation in both pre and post is crucial to creating needed national change. My great hope is that you here today will make this time, that you will lend your time, your voice, and your hands to these efforts. We have about 8 weeks to shift an election that is still within the margin of effort. So with that said, I want to turn to a quick note about the year. This year, we're going to try some new things, and there will be some classes I want to offer. More on the classes part real soon. But I want to say we're going to be centering the exploration of spiritual practices and ways to grow our souls. So do keep an eye out. It should be fun. I should note also that our kids will be doing something very similar. This year's RE curriculum is World Religions, and Becky has some pretty cool field trips planned for our kids. Now, I'm not trying to make better Buddhists or better Methodists or better Muslims or better Jews out of them, and that's really not the point. The point, I hope, is that we're going to expose them to a wider world, one filled to the brim with variety, such wondrous variety. And being aware, being familiar with difference, with different practices, with different people, is one of the most important things a community can do for its young people. Understanding that there are those who do not share our viewpoint, share our background, share our fundamentals, share our values. And that despite that gap, can still be decent, interesting, and valid human beings. That is what education is for. For the record, this was my favorite year growing up as a UU kid, and I'm really excited for them to experience this. And this year, we're going to be celebrating, for the simple sake of celebrating. Our own Lily Gear will be back this year, planning and organizing more events to bring us together for fun and food and frolic. As I mentioned earlier, our first event's only a couple of weeks away. And as you heard from Molly and Jenny, our semi-annual... Okay, timeout. Question for the wordsmiths. I meant to do this earlier, but I never did get an answer. If we do a thing every other year, is it biannual or semi-annual? Biannual? English is so dumb. Anyway, our biannual auction, our biannual auction, woo, Freud, hi, how you doing? What's on your brain, Reverend Scott? Anyway, our biannual auction is coming up really soon. The point is fundraising, yes, that is absolutely correct, and we will be shamelessly asking you for that. But the point I want to raise here is that you can't spell fundraising without fun. So now, can you? No, you can't do it. So I hope you will join us and have fun. Another side note, this homecoming marks my 5th here at UUSG. Yeah. Can't believe it. 5 years. Over these past 4 years, we've done a lot of work. We've changed the way we engage with our community. You're going to be hearing a lot about that from the social justice team. We've also changed the way we engage with other communities and other churches. Just for the record, Pub Theology will be returning for its 3rd year next month. Yeah, it's good. And once again, we'll be doing a Geneva pie service this Thanksgiving. So if you missed that in the last several years, oh my God, the pie. We've changed the way our space looks and feels, right? Look at these beautiful hangings, this beautiful space. And I'm very happy to announce or say or remind you, wherever you happen to be on the arc of information, our 3rd Street gazebo will be arriving very soon. Maybe even tomorrow, right, Tom? Maybe, yeah, possibly tomorrow. And thanks to thanks to Tom and that team. Yeah, let's just go. That's great. It's really going to transform how we are out on the space there, so I'm really excited about that. And I also am really excited about our amazing grant writing team. Are they here in the room? Oh my God. So if you haven't heard about this, check your newsletter. Based on the actions of these groups, we now have funds to update, funds and plans to update this venerable building of ours. It's going to be so cool, so exciting. There's so much energy and possibility. I am giddy. So here's the next step. Even as all of these things move forward, I need you to do me a favor. Tell someone. Tell someone who we are and how it feels to be part of a growing and vibrant and engaged community. This best-kept secret thing is kind of cool, but it's a crime and a waste to not share us with your friends, your neighbors, and your coworkers. I'm not saying you need to go stand on a street corner with a big brass bell. You don't need to march across our property as if you worked for the Ministry of Silly Walks. You don't need to set off fireworks or run a drone display or do a group howl at the moon out on 3rd Street. But you could do those things. Just saying. I'm excited about this coming year. It's going to be busy. I'm going to be busy. You're going to be busy. Our whole country is going to be busy, as it is every election year. And that means there will also be anxiety. Just want to say it up front. But there will also be hope. There will be discomfort. But there will also be joy. There will be all of these things and more, because that is what a church year is. And that is what a community does. Final note. Regardless of how this election goes, I want to remind you of a few things. Call it my message for the day. I want to remind you that even though we say we are non-creedal, which is a very clumsy way of saying that we may not agree about truth, belief, and the perfection of character, we nevertheless choose to hold certain things to be self-evident. We here in this church believe that life's great questions are ours to wrestle with, that we are worthy of this task, and this wrestling is exactly why we are here, and that this great and ongoing argument of ours is and has been the obligation of humanity since humanity was something other than humanity. Here we believe that all people, regardless of race, sex, gender, or class, all were made equal in the eyes of ultimate truth, because none of us were born broken, depraved, or unworthy of love, respect, and compassion. We believe that life is the ultimate gift, a gift given to each of us by a mysterious universe, a gift that is worth more than property, pride, and profit. And choosing how to live that life is something we must commit to each and every day. We believe that our hearts, our minds, and our bodies are our own, that we alone can best decide how we live, whether we become parents, whether we marry, whom we love, and whom we choose to call family. Here we believe that we are more than our worst day, more than our worst decision, more than error or accident of birth. We believe that growth in change is exactly what it means to be a good human being. We believe that opportunity must be for all, not those just lucky. We believe that we must not only raise the floor of our common life together, but that our common life ought to raise the ceiling as well. Whether we or our parents were born here or came here seeking a better life, we believe that all people deserve a voice in the world, a voice in their government, a voice in their future, a voice in the halls of history. We are Americans, yes, but we are also a people of a common faith, a common faith, a faith that tomorrow can be better, that justice can be made real, that the circles of our concern can always be wider, that the arc of history and future are in our hands. And it is up to us Change is up to us, and that if we want it, we must claim it. Human minds, human hearts, human hands. This is how we create a better world. This is who we are. This is why we are here. This is what we believe. Can I get an amen?
Visit us at uusg.org.